Hello and welcome back. First day of May, I guess this is May Day, so we are in out of court in Horry and in Georgetown. This is one of those weeks that very unusual. You can't really put together any sort of staff meetings because somebody's always in court. Obviously, we're still in court in magistrate's court and family court, juvenile cases, but the general sessions teams in Horry and Georgetown are out this week. Last week I told you about the start of a murder trial in Georgetown when we taped and put this up on Monday, and I told you I would give you whatever took place in that case. Well, as so often happens, you get all of your people there on Monday. You bring the jury in and you start selecting the jury, get those guys together and start with, before opening statements, the defendant said that he wanted to plead guilty. So many times this happens. There's a ton of work, and I could not be more proud of Liz Smith, who's a relatively new attorney with our office. I guess she's been here maybe 2 years. But she is down there, and with Alicia Richardson was helping her with this case. She's trying what could have been a double murder case. Let me just tell you the end of the story, and then I'll come back and fill in some of the gaps. Jordan Johnson, 30 years old, from Illinois, and his girlfriend Letitia Evans, 23, of Illinois, they were on trial for the death of Jack Kendry and Tabitha Ross in Georgetown City. So Jordan Johnson got life imprisonment without possibility of parole. In South Carolina, that means that you die. They leave you there a minute to make sure you're dead, and then they take you out and bury you. This isn't, you get all this misinformation from time to time. And there has been changes in the system. Used to, life did mean 20 years and then parole. That was back in the 80s and early 90s. But now life means life. So if you ever hear of a life sentence, Jordan Johnson will spend the rest of his natural life in jail. Letitia Evans, there was no indication that she hit or hurt anybody, but she was along for the ride. She got a YOA, which is a sentence up to 6 years, and she will serve a portion of that time and then come out on YOA parole. She probably will serve less than 2 years on that sentence. But again, she didn't, she was there with Jordan. It's really a crazy story. It shows what sort of a transient area that we live in. But Jordan Johnson had been just a pain in everybody's side in Illinois. He had racked up so many charges, and he had several felony convictions for burglary, residential burglary, assault with weapons. Those were all up in Illinois. He was actually on the run from the authorities in Illinois and driving south, and the vehicle that he and Miss Evans were in broke down, unfortunately, at the Walmart in Georgetown. That's the first time they met the victims in this case. Then they got a church to buy them a room at a hotel. Sad story. Obviously didn't tell the church that we have just tore up this state with Chicago in it and are on the run, but gave them a sad story about no gas and nothing, and they got a free room right beside the victims. So the hotel there in the city of Georgetown had video, and it showed Jordan Johnson going in there several times, and the young lady Evans never went into the room. When they went back and found Jack and Tabitha, Jack was dead. He had been beat to death with a long wrench, one of these that you might take tires off with. And Tabitha was beat almost to death, actually ended up dying, what we believe, from those injuries within the year, but she lived a good bit longer, and certainly never was as good as she was before the beating. But you know, the coroner said he couldn't really attribute the beating to her ultimate death a year later, or within the year. So those two, Jack Kendry and Tabitha Ross, both dead, and Jordan Johnson is going to spend the rest of his life in prison for it. It looks like it was over trying to get their keys to their car and to keep moving. So it must, I mean, it was multiple hits, multiple lacerations, no gun, no stab wound. Obviously, very brutal death. They took the victim's car keys, their car, and also their credit cards and their money, went back up into Maine, was spending money, and actually was caught back in Illinois, where they were extradited back to South Carolina, where they'll stay with us. One of the real sad story that took place, but very proud of Liz Smith and Alicia Richardson for a lot of hard work. Certainly ready to go, all of the witnesses ready to go, and then the defendant at the last minute says, I want to plead guilty. We will be out of court this week, but we'll come back. We've got several topics, and obviously if there's anything else that you want to talk about, leave as a comment. We'll talk about bond reform next time. I saw a question on that, and any other questions I'll try to answer at the next sit down. Thank y'all for joining us. Have a great week.